So I just came across another post and I haven't read it yet. I'm gonna read along with you guys, but the title stood out to me a lot. And I'm curious to see where this post goes and see if I can give some helpful advice or give my 2 cents. But the title of this post, you probably know this by now if you clicked the video, but it's 23 years old, sheltered whole life, and no idea what to do. So we're gonna read along together and I'm gonna see if I can give my 2 cents. It's a bit long, so I might give kind of pieces of advice in between every couple sentences or maybe every paragraph or so. But let's just read along together and see how this person can be helped. So it starts by saying, ever since graduating high school, my mental and physical activity stagnated. 18 to 23, 5 years. I'm suspecting I have depression, but I can't afford to get checked. Therapy is expensive. Plus, it's taboo here in Egypt. Okay, so he lives in Egypt. That's pretty interesting. In the past 5 years, I've only gone outside the house a handful of times, even with uni. I got my degree in communication engineering last July, but I have no idea what to do with it. I never liked it to begin with, so I'm not even competent at it. I'm curious to know why this person's doing, what is it called? Communication engineering, if he's not even interested in it. And I'm kind of gonna stop right now, just because when I was in college, this was a big thing I noticed with a lot of people, and this was true of myself as well. I feel like you see so many people, they just do random majors, maybe because their parents suggested or force it on them, or maybe their peers think it's what's best for them, or society tells them that it's what they should be doing, like maybe being like an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, and you find that the student doesn't actually like it. Maybe they just kind of go through the motions, they're doing the bare minimum, maybe they're even getting good grades, but they're not really like intrigued by the material. And this is debatable. I've seen a lot of people say things like, you should not chase happiness, you should chase what's productive, you should chase what provides the most money. I think there's a balance between that. I think to some degree, you want to do things that lead to good results. So you don't want to just do any job that makes you happy, because sometimes the job that makes you just happy is a job that can't pay the bills. And I think to be realistic in life, you have to do things that might suck a little, but lead to a long-term positive benefit for your future. But I do think there's the other side of the coin, so to speak, where you can't just do things that you don't like 24/7, because that's a dull life, that's a boring life, that's a life that's not going to lead to anything worthwhile. Like if you made all the money in the world but you hated yourself, would it be worth it? I don't think so. There's people say like, I'd rather cry in a Ferrari than, what is it, like cry in a Ferrari rather than a bus. I think that's a debatable statement. I think there are plenty of people who cry in a Ferrari and they end up committing unaliving themselves. I can't say it because of YouTube. And plenty of people that ride the bus and live very modest lives that find themselves being more fulfilled or happier, or maybe they have a good social circle, whatever it is. I don't know. It depends on the individual. But the idea that money will solve all of your problems, I don't think is valid, because there are some problems in life that weigh heavier than others. Does that make sense? And I think some problems, even with money, you cannot solve them, at least not directly. So, like I said, I think there's a balance. I think if you're the kind of person that's just doing a career because people think you should do it, or because it gives you status, or because you can pay a lot, you got to be careful with that. I don't know if that's the best strategy. And I kind of sense, I don't know this person, obviously. I'm just reading a post, so I can't get that much insight into his life or her life. Could be she, I don't know. But I would say that's a place to start. Maybe changing up your major or finding something that you might think is more appealing in the long run. Because if you keep going on this trend of doing things that aren't interesting or aren't appealing to you or aren't intriguing to you, I do think it's a life that'll lead to misery, which isn't good. That's kind of a pointless life, in my personal opinion. Let's see, where did we leave off? I never liked it to begin with, so I'm not competent at it. Okay, so he's not even good at it, which is a double whammy. I took a front-end development course over the last summer, but I feel like I can't qualify enough to apply for jobs. It's like I only know scraps, but no idea how to put them all together in larger scale, or like how that's supposed to work in a job setting. I've never worked before, at least my family never let me, and I never bothered to challenge them, coward that I am. I have no life at all, literally, no friends, no connections, nothing I'm good at. It's like I was born yesterday and now I have to do all this adult stuff that I don't even understand or know. So kind of what I'm gathering from all this, it seems a lot like I always bring everything back to this concept of eudaimonia because I think it's such a powerful framework that most people don't consider. It's so simple, but I think once you kind of think about it and start trying to apply that framework to your life, you kind of fill in the blanks of what you should be doing to become more fulfilled, become happier, live a more higher quality lifestyle, so to speak. And it seems like in this guy's situation, all the pillars are just absent. They're not built at all. Money, not built. Friendships / relationships, not built. Health, he said he's not moving much, he doesn't go outside, he doesn't do very much, not built. And I think by him trying to build all three of these things, and it's true to everybody, but for him specifically, him trying to build all three of these things, I can almost guarantee will make his life so much better by just attempting to build even one of these three things. Now, there's a bit more, and I'm gonna get to it in just a second, but I'm trying to put myself into his shoes, and if I were in this situation, figure out what I would do, just based on the things that I know now and based on the things that I've experienced. I think the very first thing he should probably do, I don't think he should do therapy. He put earlier that therapy is expensive. I don't think he should do therapy, and this might be a controversial take, but my belief, to a degree, I think therapy can be good, but I don't think therapy is always a good idea. I say this because back when I was in college, I thought I was going through depression, and I never actually got diagnosed with it. I never went to like any therapist or any doctor or psychiatrist or anything like that to get an exact diagnosis, but it was kind of just a self-perception because you kind of feel like things aren't going the way it should go, or at least things aren't going the way it has been going, and it feels like such a dramatic shift from the way things used to be versus the way things are. And my belief was that if I went to get a diagnosis, basically it's a label you create for yourself. And I feel like you kind of have to be careful with labels. Like if you allow yourself to fall into a label, it becomes your identity, and it's hard to break out of that identity because I feel like as humans, we like to be consistent with our identity of ourselves. So if someone labels you depressed, you do things to be a depressed person because you want to remain subconsciously consistent with that label. And I think a lot of therapists do that. They'll say, oh, you are depressed, and it feels like it's something that you can't fix or something that you can't change or something that can't be avoided, when I don't think that's the case. I do think you can do things to avoid it or change it or fix it, which is why I avoided therapy, and I think this guy should probably avoid it too. It sounds like he has enough energy, enough mental fortitude to at least type. So he probably isn't in that bad of a situation. He probably just perceives himself to be in a bad situation. Because of that, I don't think being able to afford therapy is a big deal because he doesn't need to do therapy. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, as far as the jobs go, I do think money is important. I can't tell, and maybe he'll get to it in a second, but it seems like he still lives maybe at home with his family. So it doesn't seem like he needs to have money right away, unless they're charging him rent or something. And I don't know how much it is to live in Egypt, but it doesn't sound like he's struggling severely with money, which is a good thing because I feel like in this situation, he has time. He's young, he has time to develop his skills, he has time to build up his income. I think what I would start with in his situation, at least based on everything I've read so far, is I would just start to get in better shape. And the reason why I say this is because he put earlier that he isn't moving much. In my personal experience, I found that when you don't move a lot, when you don't go outside enough, when you don't get enough vitamin D, when you start to become unhealthy, it affects the way you think. And if he starts to go to the gym, or if he starts to at least just go outside and like go for runs, exercise, go for walks, it'll increase. I don't want to be like too technical about certain things. Basically, he'll be happier. He'll have more energy. And if he's happier and he has more energy, he'll have more motivation. And with more motivation, of course, he'll be able to do more things. And when he does more things, it creates a positive feedback loop. The more things he does, the more he wants to do more things. It's kind of like the winner effect. If you're winning, you just want to keep winning. You don't want to start losing. So you want to keep doing more things to keep that same pace, to keep those same energy levels high, to let the momentum ride you, so you can ride out the momentum as long as possible. And so I would start with health first. And it doesn't need to be complicated. I don't think he should try to be like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He doesn't need to be Mr. Olympia. I just think he should do the bare minimum for now and just go outside for a walk. And if walking's too easy, go for a run. And if running's too easy, go to the gym, lift some weights. start to actually work on your physique and your aesthetics, because that'll make you more confident. And I think it just needs to kind of be a progression. Like, do more difficult things, and then over time, you'll feel better about yourself. So I think that's the first thing that I personally recommend he do. And then from there, I would say, in the background, when he's not working on his health, work on building up skills for this job that he actually seems like he wants to do, for this front-end development course that he said he did. Now, I don't know if he actually likes this course. I don't know if that goes into his communication engineering. I'm not too familiar with communication engineering. I have no idea what that is. But assuming this front-end development course is something that he's interested in, I imagine he'd make good money from that. It sounds like programming, and I'm sure he can make good money with programming. I would just study harder. That's how you get good at anything. You start off being shitty, and you keep doing it until you get good. He said he took one course over the summer, and he can't qualify enough to get a job. So do more coursework, and eventually you'll build up more skills and more of a portfolio, or more of a skill set, to the point where you can actually get better jobs. And it's probably not going to be instant. It's probably going to take a few months, maybe even a year or two. I think that's a much better scenario than just endlessly chasing jobs and hoping that you get something and disappointing yourself when nothing works out for you or no one is hiring you because you don't have the skills. Just get the skills. I think it's more or less straightforward. Obviously, in practice, it's a bit more complicated, and it's going to be a bit more difficult because there's a bit of discipline that's going to need to be had as you apply to jobs and as you try to take these classes, and you will feel stressed out and you feel frustrated when you don't get things right away. Sure, that's going to exist, but I still think that's a better scenario. It's better to go into the situation understanding that it will be frustrating and it will be difficult, rather than have a false sense of optimism and go in and find out things are harder than you anticipated and then be crushed. Because I think when you go in with a false sense of optimism, it's harder to stay consistent with it. And I think consistency is what wins in the grand scheme of things. So that's kind of the things I would do. First, work on your health. Just do basic things like walk, run, go to the gym, build up your physique. And in the meantime, in the background, I would also try to build more skills for this front-end development job, or whatever if it's programming, whatever job that'll land you. He put that he's scared of approaching 25 and having his brain fully developed and set in its unproductive ways. He says he's also been addicted to binge watching and social media since 18, even though it's boring and he could feel his brain rot with each scroll. That's funny because I feel like people do that all the time, where they scroll social media, myself included, and you feel how pointless it is to be scrolling. It's like not even interesting, it's not appealing. I actually don't scroll social media that much. Actually, for the past couple weeks, I have barely been on social media at all. I have all these messages I have not read, people that comment on stuff I don't even respond to it, just because social media is so boring half the time, and there's not much on there that's appealing. So it's just pointless to be on half the time. So I totally get that. As far as feeling 25 and feeling his brain's developed, I felt that too. When I was in college, or kind of in between getting kicked out of college twice, I would read a lot of books. And I can't remember, to this day, I keep trying to remember what book it was, but there was one book I read, and it was about, I can't remember the book. It was about neurotransmitters and how the brain develops, things like that. And one of the things it said is that a lot of science concluded prematurely that the brain stops developing around 21 or 22. I think that's kind of why, at least in America, you can't drink until you're 21, because the thought process was that your brain finishes developing at 21, which isn't true. But the book says that your brain kind of stops developing at 26. And it doesn't really stop developing, but a lot of the hardcore habits that you have built up become a lot more ingrained by the time you reach 26. Did I say 26? I meant 20. If I didn't say 26 a second ago, I meant 26. I think I may have said 27. But I mean 26. The book said 26. A lot of those habits get ingrained by the time you reach 26. But you can still create new neural pathways until you die, at least according to the book and according to research on, I forget the exact field that it would be. I can't remember the exact field that this will all fall under, but basically the study of the brain. So it's basically the study of the brain. Now, what I would recommend, he must be 24, at least at the time of writing this, because he said he's approaching 25. So it gives him about 2 more years-ish to change his habits. So that way when he does turn 26, he does have a good foundation set in. There's not really much I can say besides work on building those habits up. Work on getting in better shape today. Work on building up your finances today. Work on being more productive today. Work on scheduling your routine more effectively today. Do all these things today so that way by the time you turn 26, they're all kind of built in and it's harder for you to lose those habits. Hopefully that makes sense. And for the record, if I were in his position, I would start very first thing. I'm gonna sound biased, but the very first thing I would start with is learning how to manage your time effectively. That'd be the very first thing. Learning how to schedule your day out appropriately, learning to understand what's valuable in your life and what's not valuable in your life, and kind of figuring out ways to pursue those things, like pursue the things that are valuable and eliminate the things that aren't valuable, because that matters a lot. You only have 24 hours in a day, and if you can't organize yourself within that day effectively, then you can't do anything else. You cannot build a good physique if you can't schedule time to go to the gym. You cannot make more money if you can't schedule time to take your classes or to study more or to apply to jobs or work a little bit harder, work a little bit later. Does that make sense? You can't build good relationships if you don't make the time to actually reach out to people, follow up with people, figure out different events or plans or activities that you want to do with people so that way you can build and kind of develop a better social circle, a core group of friends or a core group of relationships. Does that make sense? You need time to do those things. That's the first thing I would work on. And then from there, I would just do the pillars of eudaimonia. Then you work on your health, then you work on your relationships, and then you work on your money. And I think if you do that in that order, you'll be in shape. I think you'll be not in shape like physically. Hopefully you will be in shape physically. But in the grand scheme of life, I think you'll be in much better shape doing those things in that order. And yeah, social media is one of those things where just get off social media. Like find a way to put like a blocker on your phone, put it in grayscale mode, something like that. There's not really that many hacks when it comes to not using social media besides just not using social media. Like just don't use it. There's nothing on there. Delete all the Instagram girls, unfollow all the people who post like just garbage content. Only follow things that are at least quality. So at least if you do find yourself scrolling through social media, you're only scrolling and looking at things that are actually positive or benefiting you or productive in your life. Does that make sense? Get rid of all the pages that don't offer any true value in your life. All right, so final paragraph. I guess what I'm asking here is there any hope for me to turn my life around? Even though I have literally done nothing my whole life, or am I too old? What can I do? Am I too old to get hired for something like a front-end job with the little knowledge that I have? And I think this is interesting because I feel like, yeah, he's 23. I'm sorry, I just read the title again. He's 23, so he's not even 24. He's got plenty of time. But it's kind of funny reading this because I feel like, I don't know if this is true for everybody, but this was certainly true for me at his age. You kind of feel like when you're in your early 20s, it's the end of life. Like if you don't do certain things at a specific time, then that's it. That's life. You'll never improve. You'll never get better. I remember, I think I was like 21 or 22. I was working at a gas station. I was working at a gas station and I was working at a bar too. I was doing a lot of jobs. But I think specifically the gas station that I worked at got me a bit depressed for a bit. And it's because I saw so many people, and this is nothing against them, but I saw so many people that didn't seem to like working at the gas station. And I think by extension, they didn't seem to like their lives, or at least the direction their lives took. And at that time, it felt like, man, I'm 21 or 22, and these guys are like 40s, 50s, 60s. I'm gonna be just like them. I'm here now. I'm never getting out. I'm never leaving. And it was kind of depressing because it felt like you worked so hard, or at least you had so many, like such high ambitions for how your life was gonna go, only for your life to end with you working at a gas station. That's what I felt at the time. Now, of course, in hindsight, it's a bit ridiculous. Like obviously, if you're 23 or 21 or 22, things are gonna change. You're most likely not, assuming you're putting in some effort, you're probably not gonna be in that exact same situation and in that exact same way until the day you die, most likely. But it does feel that way when you're younger, and it's hard when you're younger to kind of like project outward and see yourself as a 30-year-old or 40-year-old or 50-year-old or whatever. So I would recommend this person do that. Like really sit there and try to like project outward and think, my fears, how realistic are my fears? If I'm afraid of not developing by the time I'm 26 and not getting anywhere in life, is that a realistic expectation? Is it realistic that these things are going to happen? No, they're not realistic at all. It's more realistic that you'll probably stumble throughout your 20s. Perhaps in your 30s, you'll find something that works out for you. And then as life goes on, assuming you keep that ambition to some degree, you'll probably just make constant pivots. You'll just change small things about yourself. But over time, those small things will lead to you changing in a massive way in the grand scheme of things. That's the more realistic perspective. So, yeah, like I said, I guess to answer this person's whole post, go outside more, get some sunlight, get some vitamin D, work on yourself, get healthy. Health is wealth in the grand scheme of things. Money means nothing if you're dead. Work on your health. Then from that point on, work on skills. That way you can get this job that you want. And I think if you pursue a job that you want, you'll be also happier because you'll feel like you're progressing toward a goal that's worthwhile. I feel like a lot of times when people, as a side note, I think a lot of times when people get super unhappy, in my experience, is because they're pursuing things that they don't really care about, or they're pursuing things that are incongruent with who they truly want to be in life, or they're pursuing something without thinking about what they want to do in life. But I think that's the worst, just blindly pursuing things in life without really taking time to consider what's the point of the things I'm doing. Is this leading to anything special? Is this leading me to my goal? What goals would this lead me to? Why am I doing this? Like, you need to question those. You need to ask yourself those questions, in my opinion. And I think when you don't ask those questions, that's what leads to like that true depression, that true unhappiness, because you're just kind of like ghosting through life. You're just doing things without really knowing why you're doing them. There's no purpose to them. There's no meaning to them. You're just there. You just exist, but there's no reason for you to exist. Does that make sense? So that's the second part of what I would do. Get health, define what you want out of life, work on the skills that help you get to that point, work on whatever you need to work on, whether it's classes, whether it's just doing more job applications. It sounds like in his situation, he just needs to take more courses to get the skills, maybe do an internship. Again, it's Egypt, so I don't really know how Egypt works, but you just need the skills to get the job that you want, assuming it is the job you want. And if it's not the job you want, you need to figure out what kind of job you want to do. I know, which is super hard. I understand that. You're like 23 years old. That's a hard thing to kind of think about. But I do think that at least having an idea of what you want is a starting point. And again, you're going to pivot through time. I think that's how all people are. Assuming they're courageous enough to even question what they want to do, you're going to be pivoting and finding new things that are interesting, finding new projects, finding new potential careers that you might want to pursue. So that's the next thing. After that, what I would probably do in this situation, once you start to get your health up a little bit, once you start pursuing skills so that way you can get your career, assuming you have a little bit of money, I would go out and just try to like make some friends. Like, Egypt, I don't know the situation there. If this were America, I would try to find bars, I would try to find groups of people that are similar to me, and I'd make some time, like 1 to 3 hours per day, maybe 5 to 6 hours per week total, to just go out and meet people. Like, use Instagram, find people in your area, reach out, DM them, compliment them, whatever, and just meet more people. I'm not gonna do a whole video on like the exact steps that I'd probably do to do this, because the video is long enough as it is, but that's what I would personally do. I would start there, and then over time, if you're just out doing things, you'll probably just make friends by default. If people see you running enough, again, assuming you're in a safe area, if people see you running enough, they'll probably be like, oh, I'm gonna join this guy for a run. Or if you start going to a gym, you'll probably see some friendly faces. If you say hi to them enough, offer to spot them, work out with them, join a fitness club, whatever, you'll meet people by default, by just being out and about. So that's my suggestion. That's probably what I would do in this situation. As always, let me know what you think about this. Let me know what you would do in this situation. Let me know if you think my advice is valid, if it's good, if it's shit, terrible, whatever. I'm always interested to hear your perspectives. And please share this video if you did like it and if you think someone else might benefit from this content. My goal for the next month or two is to try to get to 1,000 subscribers. If I can do it by the end of the year, that'd be cool. But if I can do it in the next month or two, that'd be even cooler. So if you can help me do that, that'd be super awesome. You can help me by sharing the video, liking, commenting, all that good stuff that YouTube loves for people to do. And until the next video, peace. I'll see you.